Good morning. I recorded the fence story yesterday, and the fence story it came out much longer than I thought. And I had a second story that happened yesterday, and the two of them together was just too long. So what we'll do today is we'll do a story and a riddle. Okay, we'll do the fence story and a riddle. And the riddle is, what do oars and dark clouds have in common? That's it. The answer will be at the end. Stay tuned for the fence story. We moved into this house in 1980, 32 years ago. Melissa was one. We had a black Cocker Spaniel, Max. Anyone remember Max? One of the features of the house, one of the selling points was the fence, fenced in the backyard, perfect for a dog. And later on, I remember with Jackie, sometimes on a nice day, I'd say, buddy, let's go out back. You know, I'd bring in something to read, and she'd find a nice patch of grass and just lie in the sun. It was wonderful. I remember one time, we would do yard work together. I'd let her out in the back, and I'd go out and do yard work, and so she could see me. There's a mesh around the fence, so she could go up to the mesh. She could see me out front. One time, we were doing yard work. She was in the back, I was in the front, and some kid comes up to me. He goes, "Hey, mister, is that your dog down the street?" And he points down the street, and I go, "No, Jackie's in the backyard. Why would you?" And I look, she had gotten out. She kept me on my toes. She would look for the breaches in the fence, and she'd bolt. Good thing I got her. So we moved in 1980, and a couple years later, I remember Halloween night, we had the mummy. The mummy? The mummy. There was a mummy. We have a relatively small neighborhood, and on Halloween night, a mummy would come around. This guy, this tall, thin guy, in a mummy outfit. It was a good outfit, costume. He would walk deliberately, slowly, and for a number of years, we looked forward to the mummy. We had a mummy. I didn't find out till decades later that the mummy was the guy who lived behind me, Wally. Wally and I share a fence. The kind of fence is a split rail. I think it's called a split rail fence. And the fence when we moved in was in pretty good shape. It was existing. It had been there, but over the years, the fence started to deteriorate. And over the years, you know, it's hard to get a bunch of neighbors to agree on anything. So we talked about replacing the fence a number of times, and it was hard to get all the neighbors involved, 4, 5, 6 neighbors, to agree. And so for whatever reason, we never wound up replacing the fence. 4 or 5 years ago, my neighbor on the corner, Bill, he says, "Mike, I'm gonna replace the fence. Are you interested?" And I say, "Yeah, it's time." He and I share just a small portion of the fence, and so the only thing he says is, he goes, "Wally doesn't want to go in." I said, "Well, you know, that's his option, but let's do it, you and I." So he did his whole backyard fence, including the portion that we shared. And I also had a piece running down from them as part of my left side fence, which I also replaced. So about 4 or 5 years ago, we replaced the fence, and it looked good. And so after replacing that fence, I saw the new fence in my backyard and the old fence. And so it made me want to replace the old fence. So I go up to Wally one day. I say, "What do you say? You're interested in replacing the fence?" And Wally says, "Mike, I'm moving." I said, "Oh." I said, so I thought about this. I said, "Listen, I'm motivated. I'd really like to replace the whole backyard, the short part we share." I said, I'll go 60-40. I'll pay 60-40 to replace the fence. And he says no. I said 70-30. And he says, "Well, we're selling the fence. I think I'm going to let the new buyer decide what type of fence to put in," which is his prerogative. Fine. He winds up selling the house to a flipper. A flipper, their bottom line is just to make the most money they can get. So I talk to the flipper when he moves in. I see him working one day. I say hi. I tell him a story. I just replaced the fence in the corner. I'd like to replace it in the back. Are you interested? He goes, well, we're going to be here a while. Let me get back to you. Okay. In the meantime, I'm sort of waiting on the flipper to decide, and there's a tree in now the flipper's backyard. It's just a few feet past the fence line on his property. Big, tall, dead tree. This big hunk. I mean, it's huge, and it's dead. And so there have been more than one night where it's windy and I'm in bed and I hear the wind and I think this thing, if it's going to fall, it's going to kill me. It was a major concern, and because it's dead, limbs would fall down. And one time, a bunch of limbs came down and destroyed parts of 2 boards in my deck, which I replaced. And I sent pictures of the replaced deck to the flipper. I said, "Look what your dead tree did to my deck." He goes, "Mike, thanks for letting me know. I didn't know there was a dead tree back there. I'll take it out." I said, "Oh." He goes, "I'll take it out within a week." Really? I say, "If you take it out within a week, I'll chip in 10%. The flipper took out this tree, this huge dead tree. And I kicked in the 10%. And I can tell you, one of my least favorite sounds in the world is a chainsaw. They're loud, they're grinding. Sometimes, a neighbor will be taking out a tree, and it's just, I hate that sound of a chainsaw. The day he took out that tree, the chainsaw was one of the best sounds I've ever heard. So he took out the tree. So he's finishing up the renovation, and he does an amazing. He updated that house from the 1970s to modern. He did a bang up job. I saw just so modern. So it's almost time for him to sell the tree, and I say, Flipper, I forgot his name. I said, "So what are we gonna do about the fence? Shall we replace it? Put a brand new fence in for the new owner?" He goes, "Yeah, about that. I think I'm gonna let the new owners decide what kind of fence they want." Okay, which is his prerogative. But I was glad that he took out the tree. Sells the house, new family. This is why the fence story goes on a number of years. So the new owner, I see the new owner back there one day. I saw him in the back. I introduced, "Hi, I'm Mike. Tell him the fence." It's getting to be a long story here. I said, "We replaced this a couple years ago. It'd be nice to replace it. I understand that you spent a lot for the house. The last thing you want to think about is another price to pay, another cost associated with a house, owning a house." He says, "Well, let me think about it for a while, and I'll get back to you in a few weeks." I say, "Great." A few weeks go by, I don't hear from him, so I write to him. I said, "Just hope you're settling in well to the new house. Hope you like the neighborhood. Have you thought any more about the fence?" He gets back to me. He says, "Mike, we're not going to do anything for at least a year or two. But if we do replace it, I think we'll put up we're leaning towards a privacy fence." Okay, I was glad to hear from him. So I'm looking back at my partial new fence and the old fence, and I really would like to replace it, even if I have to pay for it myself. But in a year or two, if he puts up a privacy fence, well, then what? I don't like the look of a fence behind a fence, and I would enjoy a private replacing the fence with a new fence for a year or two. But then if he puts up the privacy, I was in limbo for a year or two, and I didn't want to decide on putting up a fence, because if he puts up, fine. So a year or two later, I get a knock on the door, and it's the neighbor, which I don't think I had seen since we first moved in. He says, "Mike, want to let you know we're putting in a fence tomorrow." I said, "Oh." And it didn't seem like he was in the mood to really chat. So I said, "Okay, well, good luck with the fence." So this is good. So here's what I think. I think, okay, when they put up the fence that day, I'll get up early, and once I see them working, I'll take down my old fence. I don't need, if he's going to put up a fence, a privacy fence, I don't need my old fence to be behind it. So that's the plan. The next day I'm gonna take down my fence while he puts up his fence. Taking down the fence, it's so old, you can just pull it down. So the next day, of course, I completely forget about this. And by the time I go out back and look and to see, I'd forgotten he's going to do this. My fence is gone. They've taken it down and they've hauled it away. Now, when the neighbor came by the day before, he didn't say, "Hey, Mike, we're going to put up a fence and take down the old." He never said anything about taking down the old fence. All his words were, "We're putting up a fence tomorrow." So the fact that he took down my fence, the old fence, and hauled it away. I remember Mom talking when she had that fence put up next to her office. It really takes out your whole view, because now instead of what you saw before, in my case the sky, there's now this fence. Okay, so I wasn't in favor of the fence, but as long as he's going to put up a fence, he's going to take down my fence and haul it away. Big win. So he puts up a fence. That was a year ago. So you sort of get used to the fence. And I noticed this past summer, my backyard is wide, but it's not very deep. And the center part is the part that I really take care of, because that's the part by the deck, it's the part that you see. And in the spring, when I've got the azaleas and that mossy stuff, it blooms for about a week or two in the spring. It looks really nice. It's like the prettiest part of the whole yard. So I do take care of the center part. I often mulch it, but on the corners, I've got 2 corners. I don't really. So I noticed over the summer, the left side, I mean, my new fence, the portion that I redid, you couldn't see it. It had overgrown so much, vines and just like in the woods, stuff just grows, and if you don't clear it out, I couldn't see the fence, the ivy. So I thought I should really get back there and clean it out. So one day this past summer, I did just that. I went and chopped all the stuff down. In fact, there was one part I got to the back. There was this big circle, this big dome. Like why is the growth? Why does it make this big dome? And when I cleared it out, I realized I had taken out a tree just a year ago, and completely had forgotten about it. And the growth in this big oval. So I clear down the back left portion of my backyard, and now I can see my fence, and I like it. Okay, and it was good. Like on the 8th day, and it was good. The fence still looks good. The part that we replaced, and now I've got the new fence, the privacy fence, so that looked good. Now I went to the other side of the lawn, the back right-hand corner, and once again, I was starting not to be able to see the privacy fence, because stuff just grows, and unless you take care of it, it keeps growing. So I went back, and after cleaning out the left side, I cleared out the right side. Now I don't have pictures of the old fence, backyard fence, because who knew I'd be making a video of it. But this is what the old fence, once I cleared out the back right-hand corner, this is the fence on the left side that I share with a neighbor. This is what I saw. And I'm thinking, the front part looked okay, because I had replaced some of the posts over the years and some of the rails, but the back part was a mess. It went up to a tree, stopped, and continued on the other side. It was a mess. And when they replaced the fence on the left side, back left, they used this nice mesh, this black mesh, which I really liked a lot. So I talked with my neighbor on the left side. I said, what do you think? Should we do something about this fence? And she agreed. And if you recall, on my birthday, I was sitting here waiting for the fence guy. And so what we got a couple of estimates. And on Tuesday, to finish out the story, this is to complete the story. This is what they just put up on Tuesday. How about them apples? For those of you trying to keep in your mind what's on which side of the yard, I mistakenly said a number of times that the new fence was put up on the left side of the house, and that's incorrect. I apologize. The new fence is on the right side of the house. As to the riddle, what do ores and dark clouds have in common? They're both foreboding. That's it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. right here on the YouTube.